Well, joining me now from Mogadishu is Abdurrahman Yusuf Hussein Ainti. He is the Minister of Planning and International Cooperation in the Somali government. Minister, thanks so much for joining us. Big day on Wednesday, presidential election. How high are the stakes for your country?
Very high. We don't have presidential elections very often, once every 4 years or so. And this is going to be a major change in the way we handle elections. These elections have been a lot more different than previous elections in that a lot more people have participated in the electoral process. We used to have an election where few people essentially decided who was going to be the leader of this country. But now we've had about 20,000 people or so elect a bicameral legislature who are now electing the president.
I'm looking at some of the problems of Somalia, and my apologies, there are so many to choose from here. It's a shaky, fragile situation politically for your country. So you have Al-Shabaab attacks, you have a strange and sometimes difficult relationship with AMISOM. There's a security threat for locals and foreigners alike. What do you think is the biggest problem that needs to be fixed and can be fixed by a new president putting it at the top of his agenda?
Certainly, security comes at the top of the agenda. We've had an improved security overall, I would say, in the past 4 years. But at the same time, I think most Somalis would be critical if they hear me say this, because they feel every day that insecurity has increased in some parts of the country, especially in Mogadishu. So putting together a very competent security apparatus and also restoring security in many parts of the country, as well as at least, if not eliminating, decreasing the number of major terrorist attacks by Al-Shabaab and other groups would be a top priority.
What are you most proud of over the past 4.5 years?
Well, certainly a lot has been achieved in the last 4.5 years. One of the, I believe, major achievements is that we've been able to tackle some of the key issues of creating a federal structure for the country. 4.5 years ago, there was only one federal member state. Today, we have 5 federal member states in our new federal architecture. That's an achievement in and of itself. The second one is that we've been able to articulate a kind of an economic recovery plan for the next 3 years, that we've just finalized our first national development plan in 3 years. We've also been able to review our constitution, although that's an ongoing process. And of course, even though we have fallen short of holding one-person, one-vote elections, we've been able to add some 20,000 people into our electoral system. So these are some of the few achievements. But of course, we could have done a lot better than we've actually done in the last 4 years.
Can your country ever be fully independent, fully free, as long as it's dependent in so many ways on those AMISOM troops?
Actually, next month will mark the 10th anniversary of the African Union peacekeeping mission in Somalia. And there is now an increased debate within Somalia, within policymakers, to try and see how we can essentially untangle ourselves from what is now increasingly looks like an over-reliance on external security forces. Critics would be legitimate to say that we could have charted a different path over the past 4 years.
You mentioned that there are so many candidates in the presidential election. Does that make Wednesday's vote all the more unpredictable?
Certainly. I mean, there are 24 men running for the top seat of the country. Very few have a realistic chance of actually making it to the top. It is a very competitive electoral election that we're going to have on Wednesday. And, one has to look at these things in context. We live in one of the most undemocratic regions in the world. The Horn of Africa is not a very democratic region. So, in a way, Somalis feel proud of, some of our, rudimentary democratic credentials. Not as good and as transparent and as clean as one would have liked, but certainly a lot better than a lot of the neighboring countries, for example.
Now, Minister, we first encountered each other when you were donning a different hat, when you were a journalist, and you wrote very well over the years. I would follow a lot of your writing. In 2012, you wrote about the Somali presidential elections then, and you said Somali presidential election, 6 ways to win power. And you said base support, money, political network, external support, name recognition, and a presence in Somalia. And in your final line was interesting, because you said the archaic clannish way of seeking the presidency, while still omnipresent, is beginning to lose momentum. The next election, just 5 short years away, i.e. now, will hopefully be a lot more vibrant and far less clan-oriented. So I ask you, 5 years later, do you feel that that is the case?
Well, certainly, I did not have, the good foresight that I should have had, but clearly we have made a major progress in terms of leaving some of our traditional ways of elections. Certainly, the issue of clan and tribe continues to play a major role in our political system, but not as omnipresent as it used to be a few years ago. And we now have a very clear plan that in 4 years' time, political parties will play a lot bigger role than they do play right now. And so we're leaving some of our legacy behind, but we're also now kind of climbing through the ropes, learning new tactics to our political system.
Minister Abdi, it's been great talking to you. Thanks so much for taking the time.